Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Type 1 Radio Lounge on a Thursday special. Tonight we have Alan Abbadessa, is that how you pronounce it?
Sounds good to me.
Abbadessa-Green, who is sort of author, editor of the new book that's come out called The Sync Book. Hello there, Alan.
Hello to you, Nick, and everyone else on the call. Thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, so also with us we have Free Energy Day. Hello.
Oh.
And Carolyn. Hello, Carolyn.
Hey, how you guys doing? Glad to be here.
Excellent. And hopefully other people will join in. If you want to call in and ask Alan any questions about the Sync book, the call-in number is 347-205-9657, or you can go to the show page on Blog Talk on the Type 1 Radio Lounge Network and just press the Skype button and you'll get straight into us. So yeah, we'll have a good chat. So Alan, first, how did you come up with the idea of doing... Hello? Who's that?
What was that?
I apologize.
Okay. Carolyn J, if you're not going to be speaking, when you want to speak, just unmute your microphone. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good at that right now.
Coolio. So, Alan, I'll repeat that for you. How did you come about with the idea of the Sync book, and how did you get in touch with the people that you've got in there?
Sure. And no harm, no foul, by the way, on that. That's totally cool. Yeah, so basically I've been really interested in a lot of these topics for a while. I was really heavy into conspiracy or alternative research for a long time, and then I stumbled upon synchronicity, and I was looking at different blogs and websites that studied synchronicity and what a lot of them call synchromysticism, which we can get into later.
Okay.
But this just became more and more near and dear to my heart, and after sort of shifting my focus writing-wise and attention-wise to exploring this phenomenon for about a year or so, and meeting a lot of the authors, the way we meet people online nowadays, right? We're not, we just sort of get to talking or maybe commenting on each other's blogs or something like that. You stumble upon someone's work and you enjoy it.
It makes the world smaller.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's wonderful because we can also meet people who are interested in similar topics and really just dive into these things. Whereas I was just talking with someone else about this. It's like if go back 50 years, you'd have to find, what are the odds you're going to find someone in your town that's into the same thing you're into? You have to find that person, hope you get along well, and so on, and you'd just be the two crazy guys in that town. Now we can all sort of reach out to a community online and sort of zero in on the subjects that interest us most, and it does make the world smaller, but it also gets our research really going. It really adds an exponential rate to.
I suppose there's more people. There's going to be more people contributing, isn't there? So there's more content there for everybody to research with.
Yeah, Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we can just kind of share it, and we can, criticize each other's work, which I think is healthy. We can discuss it. We can add new ideas, and just this age that we live in, obviously the technology has, a downside to it in that it's very often used as a control mechanism, but it also it's a tool. It doesn't have a moral built into it. That tool can be used for good or ill, and I think we're really putting this to amazing use.
That's what we're here for. We are the Type 1 Radio. We are trying to change the planned Type 1 civilization that that the places like the Georgia Guidestones are hinting to, and we're going to create our own Type 1 civilization, and this is part of it. The Type 1 telephone that we're speaking on, we're like 5,000 miles apart, and this is I think it's an interesting time in that everybody's able to speak to like-minded people directly and be sort of already on the same page. So you're already, everybody's already in that mindset. Whatever field you're in.
Correct. Can I say I know there's often I think all of us get criticism for that on occasion, that we can end up in what's referred to as an echo chamber, where basically if you're all just too like-minded, you're just you're preaching to the choir, and you both come to a consensus amongst each other, and you're not getting outside of that world. I think there's valid criticism there, or room for it, but I also think our room is getting bigger and bigger, and we're allowing as long as we allow these conversations to take place, and debate, again, the debate is healthy, so I'm so open for it.
So you've got like 26 people that have contributed to the book, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. There's 26 people in this book. Most of these guys have websites or blogs of their own. You can go to thesyncbook.com, and there is a tab for authors, and that will serve as a portal to all of their websites, and you can explore the work they do. I encourage everyone to check all 26 of these guys out, and but of course, some of it's I'm going to warn right up front. Some of it's going to seem a little abstract at first. So hopefully, what we can also get into today is sort of what it is they're doing, so that we are on the same page.
Yeah. So even though these people may have different directions, the fact that they're in the sync book, that you've compiled them into this one place, means that there's a line running through. There's a synchronicity in their work almost.
Correct. Yeah, that's the focus. I think the important thing here is while we might all take different interpretations as to what it means, the big question, what does it all mean, right?
Yeah.
I think it's at least an important starting place is to say we all agree we're observing and experiencing a particular phenomenon, and if we can at least start there, which is more than the mainstream consensus reality is going to allow you. If we can start agreeing that there's a phenomenon taking place, we're observing it and experiencing it. Now, whether or not we come to different conclusions, that's okay. But I think a really important place to start is that these 26 authors all recognize this is a very real thing, and explore it from their own taste. And I also think synchronicity, by its very nature, is highly personal. It's something that might be significant to you, might not be significant to someone else, based on your life experiences and your context. So that's going to, of course, bring us to different conclusions. And, of course, we all have different paths in life. We're not all meant to be the same thing. We're not
Yeah.
You know, we're not drones, we're not robots, we're individuals. So my thing is, I could have put out a book, hey, this is a book about synchronicity, this is what I think it is, but that would have been really silly because you needed to get, I felt you needed to get as many people as possible to give their experiences and their interpretations as possible. And that's what the Sync book does, and I think it does it very well.
Well, that's it, because most people, that's kudos to you there, my friend, because most people would take other people's, ideas, and then articulate that, and then write that from their own perspective. So, I mean, that's a very neat tool you've got there to go, well, actually, my take isn't really necessary. I'm just bringing these people, because you might bring your angle in on that work and sort of, you're bringing it their work in the truest possible sense, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, I've never been one for just running with someone else's work. That's not, especially in this electronic age. I say to people all the time, how hard is it to put a link to something? That's all. That's really all you need to do. Say, hey, I got this idea from here. Here's a link. Check it out, and then you can run with it. You don't have to. This doesn't have to be like a term paper or a thesis where you need to all these citations or whatever. Put a link. I think a link is a common courtesy.
So was it synchronistic how you the people that you've got in the book? Was it synchronistic how you became aware of their work?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think you guys are all familiar with Freeman's work, obviously. I think that's how you all know each other, correct? Through the Freeman's network?
Yeah, I sent Freeman a little message before. He may join us. I'm sure he is probably listening. So yes, we are all friends of Freeman.
Okay, awesome. So I remember a number of years back hearing, I don't even remember how, okay, so like I said, I was pretty much conspiracy-oriented, that whole, very much looking at things from the New World Order, information, stuff like that. So there was the Oracle Broadcasting, which really focused on that kind of radio stuff. And I didn't listen to it often, but I did on occasion. I just popped it on one night, and I heard this voice that I'd never heard before. This, of course, is Freeman. And I just listened to it. I caught it like in the middle of the show, so I didn't know who he was. I didn't, I just enjoyed his take. Specifically, I enjoy Freeman's take. While I disagree with a lot of, again, his conclusions as to what these things mean, I think his research is solid, and I think his opinion is very valid. What I really liked about the way he addressed this stuff was he removed the fear from it. Whereas many people are putting out this idea, they're coming to get you, and you need to fight back, all that sort of Alex Jones nonsense, which only, in my opinion, really only serves to instill a cycle of violence, is really all it does. Freeman sort of took it as a playful, remove the fear, let's examine this stuff for what it is, let's be mature about it, and at the same time be childlike about it, and see where we can go. And I really, really appreciated that. So, excuse me, it was him who I first heard use the term, I think either he used the term synchromysticism, or he mentioned, it might have been that he mentioned Christopher Knowles, who does a blog, The Secret Sun, and I believe that's how, I don't know, this is a while back, but I think that's how it happened, and I just sort of checked out their work, or I started to look into this a little bit more, and I sort of branched off from there. And it was through Christopher's work and then seeing what he was doing and seeing other people who took it not to say it's further, but in a different direction from you did. And I got to meet all these different people and became acquainted with their work, and just really, really was fascinated by it and drawn to it.
Well, excellent. Yeah, I think Freeman put me onto, or maybe aware that that the is part of synchronicity, because I think that's what you were saying the last time we talked, that it's just your awareness, you become aware of something, and then that things like you sort of notice things more. Is that the case?
I believe so, yeah. And there's differing opinions as to, is this something that's always there? Something, we can think of it as a sort of noosphere or a collective unconscious brain space. Is it something that's always there and we're just tapping into it? Or is it something that is growing along with us? And I
suppose the classic synchronicity or synchromysticism, I think Robert Anton Wilson, he sort of put everybody onto was the 23.
Sure, yeah. And even William S. Burroughs, I would argue, probably before him, I think, had a 23 fascination. But yeah.
And it's amazing since, I think it was maybe a cosmic trigger, so he was, maybe talking about William S. Burroughs. And then after that, I just noticed 23s everywhere, and still do to this day. It's amazing how in films or TV shows, like the room number is 23 or the house is 23, and there's 23 in the background.
I've heard a few people argue that something like that is, whether intentional, like a maliciously intentional or unintentional, that it's a sort of neurolinguistic programming where someone tells you, 23 is important, keep an eye out for 23, and then you're suddenly going to notice it everywhere. If I say to you today, look for blue cars, suddenly you're going to see blue cars everywhere.
Yeah, because it's focusing your attention, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is some credibility to that to an extent, but there's also, like you said, you're just focusing your intent. So maybe at first, to me it's a learning experience. So maybe at first you are, again, whether good or bad or intentional or unintentional, sort of gently conditioned to recognize 23. It's a learning experience. You realize, wow, if I focus my attention on 23, I can pick it out of the fabric of my reality. I can notice it in movies, and I can notice it on street signs and all this sort of stuff, and I'll notice it everywhere. So then I think what happens is if we learn to apply that same focus to other things like core truths or symbolism or any number of stuff, then we can refine that focus and really hone in on the important stuff.
Yeah. So I haven't read the Sick Book yet. It is on my Christmas list. But what? So within the synchronicities of each of, so what are the? Can you touch upon the different the different stories that they've got in there, or?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So there's 26 authors. I know 2 of them are listed on your guys' site. You have the Type1 artists. There's a thing for Type1 artists, and you have up there Jake Kotza and also Steve Wilner.
Okay.
Both of those guys are in the Sync book. They each approach this from their point of view. Jake is probably the one who coined the term synchromysticism.
Oh.
And he was first doing this, really he was after 9/11, he was exploring 9/11 conspiracies, and so many people have, numerous people, of course, have taken 9/11 to study what they call predictive programming, or bits and pieces in media that seem to foreshadow it or seem to mirror it and all this sort of stuff. So I think at first he was doing that, and then he realized if you apply, again, it's like if you apply that same study to anything, you're going to find those same connections. And this is where he sort of transitioned out of a solely conspiratorial view of it, because, we're picking up all this symbolism in 9/11 and going, so obviously this is a Freemasonic or Illuminati plot because I can see the Pillars of Solomon or the Twin Towers, and, just run with all this sort of stuff. Or the
He's on the $20 bill as well.
Right. We could just kind of run with all this stuff, and it's not to, it's not to discredit that the symbolism is there, and in some cases is more intentional than others. I'm not trying to...
So it's more like taking an objective view of the situation.
Or, let's say, putting it in the correct context.
Okay.
So to say, hey, look, if I study 9/11 for 2 years, and I can find all the conspiracies, and I can also find all this esoteric symbolism embedded in the event. Now, a lot of people are going to see that, and I would argue to an extent have been conditioned to then criticize the symbolism. Oh, it's there, and this is obviously an event that isn't a good thing, so obviously the symbolism is bad, and whoever's using it is a bunch of evil douchebags. Jake's sort of thing at some point transitioned because he realized, yeah, but if I study anything, I'm going to find that same symbolism and the same synchronicities. He said to somebody, it was really funny, I was listening to a show with him, some guy is explaining for 40 minutes all this numerology and symbolism and synchronicity in 9/11, and Jake just listened patiently, and then he said, yeah, but I guarantee you if you spent the same amount of time studying the contents of your fridge, you'd find the exact same thing in there. And it's not, it's not to imply that the guy's connections are bad. It's not to say like, well, you're just making up connections. It's to say, no, we live in perhaps a holographic universe where everything is, as above, so below, microcosm, macrocosm, everything is represented in everything. So if we were to study the contents of our fridge, we are going to see esoteric symbolism, we're going to see world events, we're going to see personal experiences. The point is to say that the symbolism or these connections don't need to be necessarily malicious. Just like we said about technology, it's not necessarily good or bad, it's how it's used. So we recognize symbols. I think a lot of us in conspiracy are conditioned to say, then obviously it's bad, anyone using it is bad. But if I find this symbolism in literally everything, then it's not necessarily bad. It's just part of the fabric of our existence.
Yeah, it's like every part contains the whole.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
and I suppose quite a lot of the whole is a lot of empty space going on. If you think of how much space is in each atom. And also we were talking about how everybody's got a different point of view, so their perception is slightly different. So that's another part of the one part containing the whole, because that point of view sees the entire universe in a completely different way.
Well, yeah, very well said. I think we all have. There's another guy in the book, Neil Kramer, who uses the term often, which I believe also Robert Anton Wilson uses this idea of reality tunnels.
Yeah.
The idea that we all have our specific lens through which we view the world, and that's of course going to shape our perception is going to shape our reality.
Yeah. At this point, I'm going to bring on my friend and brother, Freighter X. Freighter X, are you there? Unmute your mic, my friend.
greetings. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Fine.
Good to hear you, man.
You were just saying yesterday that you have a copy of the book.
Yeah, I've got a brand spanking new copy of the Sync book. I bought it a couple weeks ago, and it's just on. I have so many books to read, but I read the first essay and I thought it was excellent, and then I passed it on to my wife to read first because I had several other books to read. But I'm really excited about the topic, and the first essay, and by the way, I really dig the comic that you wrote in the middle of the book. That was excellent. I also flipped through that as well. But yeah, I think it's an excellent topic, and we're all friends of Freeman. I mean, Freeman's as you said, he was one of the first people that used the term to me of synchromysticism, and it was so pertinent at the time. I thought, wow, that's really right on, that term, and relating to Jungian philosophy concerning synchronicity, and I too was a child, adolescent who went out wandering after reading the Celestine prophecies and everything related to that. So yeah. Right on.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, from your opinion, I know you were affiliated with a Masonic lodge, correct? And are no longer?
No, sir.
Actually, I am still affiliated with at least 2 Masonic lodges. I'm an active member of 9 esoteric orders as we speak, but I'm very disenchanted and delusional active membership within the social aspect. But I have to admit that I'm struggling with giving up the accolades of the invitational orders that I belong to because of I feel like it's sort of, I've done a lot of research, and I feel like being a member of the Masonic Rosicrucians and the Knight Masons and a couple other orders, it's hard to, the ego definitely plays into it. It's hard to let go of those memberships because you can't join those groups. You're invited. You're tapped to join those.
Isn't the point of Freemasonry
well, no. See, the point that you're referring to, the esoteric side of Freemasonry, is one that's not embraced by the average member who gets involved in Freemasonry. He's joining for many other reasons besides, besides pursuing some Grail quest.
The ones I know don't know what it's all about. I've had to put them on to, how can you be a Freemason and not know who you are, but the heck is...
Well, why do you ask? Why do you ask if I was a member of the lodge?
Oh, the emphasis wasn't on past tense or present tense. It doesn't. I honestly, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not anti-Masonic at all. I'm sort of neutral on it. I do think, as I was saying before, I mean, the symbolism and the esoteric study is what's important. Obviously, people can use that for good or ill, or use those social connections for good or ill. So it's not a judgment. It was just sort of a question. I thought you could probably speak to this idea a little bit. That for me, what's important are the spiritual lessons. And as you pointed out, your average Mason doesn't know it. And I would also argue that the average person, online, websites like Vigilant Citizen, where they're saying, oh, we're going to examine symbolism, occult symbolism, and expose it. All these guys who are exposing it, I very often realize, well, they obviously don't know what it really means. Otherwise, they wouldn't be presenting it in that fashion. And I was just wondering if you would speak, and you don't, obviously you don't have to agree with me, but if you would speak to that idea that the symbolism or the teachings are to be taken as something separate from any idea of what a political fraternal organization might do.
Well, first of all, I do agree with you. So, I do agree with you, but I think there's definitely a separation, a divergence in the approach. between what you experience on the mundane level versus the esoteric. And to speak to what you are referring to as far as those that you could call fear mongers, or even, those that would be alarmists, that would be pointing to exposing the dark occulted aspects of fraternal orders, for example. I mean, you're exactly right. You hit it right on the head. Most of these people have no clue about the material they're looking at, and their intent to expose is just so, it does expose their motive, which is to foment fear, to cultivate fear, which is exactly the opposite, I think, of what everyone we're talking to today really thinks is a priority, and that speaks for itself. But there is absolutely, I think, for myself, my approach to the whole fraternal order was like an individual Grail quest. It was like the idea of needing to understand, having just like yourself dealt with a lot of this material and worked through reading I could sit here and list off the bibliography of books and we'll all agree, but we all know the ones I'm talking about, the ones that we've all read or at least heard of and referred to, and wanting to know really embrace the idea of what it meant to be an initiate and what it meant to experience the mysteries.
That's why they call them degrees.
In the ancient sense, but in modern times, which is what the Freemasonic order, that's what they say they offer, and they do to a degree, no pun intended, to an extent they do, but the lack of understanding of what they're working with is so stark, it's so dramatic that it's hard to ignore, and it becomes very hard for any self-respecting person who is on some sort of path for truth to continue to play the game of just parroting the ritual and such.
Yeah, I agree. I think even that's how someone who's within the order could lose track of it also, because at some point you're just parroting what... So maybe you have someone online who's parroting what Vigilant Citizen is saying, or any number of websites. So they're parroting that and saying, oh, this is what it means. And then they're going to, have someone else who's going to read Manly P. Hall, and he's going to repeat that and say, well, this is what it means. But if at some point, like any spiritual text or any esoteric knowledge, anything, you can't just read it as an academic like, oh, okay. You have to actually study it, think about it, and apply it to your life.
That's an excellent point. It's an excellent point. So often we hear these oversimplified explanations, and it's hard to bite my tongue because, even within the orders, the esoteric orders, when a person progresses through the degrees, like Sonic was referring to a moment ago, when a person progresses through the degrees, they're told at every step that with every revealing, there's a new reveiling. There's a new concealing. And with every meaning, there's another meaning behind it. And you're constantly reminded that there's more than one meaning to every symbol that you're receiving and every teaching that you're being presented with. There's more than one meaning. And it's something that's repeated over and over again. So I want to emphasize that. And that's something that when you listen to anyone today talk about these rituals, they always, even the favorite people I listen to personally, they always offer a very simplified version, and I just kind of shrug it off. But it's not a simple explanation. There is not one explanation. There's many, many meanings.
That's what Alan was referring to before when he was saying that everybody's got their own point of view, so they're seeing things slightly differently. So when you're saying that there's this, the initiates is there's many meanings to whatever's been revealed, that's because of that they can only see what's true to them.
Exactly, because there is so many paths up the mountaintop. There's so many ways to truth, so many paths to truth. There's no one way. Just like the last words of the Buddha, doubt and find your own light. That's the last things he supposedly said, because everyone has their own path. Yeah. We all have our own journey, and we're not supposed to subscribe to somebody else's.
No.
We're supposed to live and walk our own path.
That's why consciousness is because it needs to have different points of view.
I really like that aspect of it. Now, can I offer what's possibly contradictory way of saying it? But I think ultimately this might seem like a paradox, but I think both true. I think, like you said, you have to walk away from the other people's truth and find your own. But Jay posted here a comment like layers of an onion, which is one of my favorite metaphors for this, is you're going deeper and deeper. So you're finding, like you said, behind each unveiling is another reveiling. So you're going deeper in. But I actually also think if we sort of view it almost like a pyramid, not to use a cliched or loaded symbol, but these things, it doesn't mean that the first layer of the onion stops being valid on its own, but it needs to be taken, of course, within context. So that first layer of the onion is obviously not the core truth, but it's still, it sets the foundation, if you will. And like I said, this maybe sounds paradoxical to the idea of everyone needs to find their own path, but there is also, sometimes I'm reminded that it's not to say there isn't validity to these other layers. They just really need to be put into the proper context. And that sounds a little vague, but I think that's another important distinction to make.
Well, it could be that there is a way, but many paths of the way.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think it's important to make the distinction, and I wasn't trying to dismiss the meaning of the other layers. Like I wasn't trying to.
Oh, I know you were.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always the quality. I mean, with these esoteric orders and hermetic traditions, I think you get into qualification. You're qualifying to move to the next level. It's always about qualifying. To enter a new degree, you have to qualify that you are proficient in the former degree in order to go on to the next degree. And so that proficiency test leads to another unveiling. And so in the initiatory rite, in the beginning layers, like you mentioned, there is a meaning that's set forth because it is the meaning of the path of the seeker, the one who seeks truth. He enters the initiatory rite because he seeks more light. He seeks truth. He wants to be brought out of darkness and into the light. And so that is an important, distinction. A distinction, I think, is a good word.
Yeah. Like I said, and I knew you weren't. I think we both understand each other very well. It's like I said, it was paradoxically both true in kind of sense that certainly, ultimately, we need to have our own path, but that even those early life lessons where later on we go, oh, actually, I now think of it like this. Just like when we all find our own reality becomes our own path. Well, I meet someone else along the road, and they're on a slightly different path than I am, and they view it differently. But that's cool. That's valid to them, just like my first layer of the onion still has some validity for me. And there are lessons we need to relearn that. So I think it's, I don't know. Like I said, I think we understand each other very well. I just sort of wanted to throw that out there.
Yep.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought up that point about the initiatory rite, sorry to cut you off there, Sonic, but was because of the first essay in your book. The first author there refers to that and talks about Neo making the initiatory choice between pills and how that is the beginning of the path, and so I thought it was, good to be able to come back around to that and refer to that, because that is the only part of your book that I've read, and it was pertinent to the definition and to describing the definition of sync and synchronicity and synchromysticism.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, the idea of we might be, so maybe the initial initiation is that choice, to seek out the light. But then, 5 years down the road, or 20 degrees later, or whatever it is, we might sort of get trapped in a new sort of way of thinking, and we might need to be reminded and relearn that lesson of that first initiation and go, wait a second, why was I doing this? Oh yeah, it's because I wanted to find truth. And you sort of remind yourself of that and refine your study and get yourself back on the true path. So that's, I think,
that's excellent.
Yeah, any good alchemical understanding would be that there's cycles within the cycle, right? So sometimes you need to sort of restart and go back to the beginning. Doesn't mean you go all the way back to step one. It just means you relearn that lesson and you sort of reapply that.
Recall.
You kind of described my own experience, I think, a little bit, like with this whole fraternal orders, thinking now I'm at that point where I'm sort of going, okay, what am I going through this for? Oh, yeah, I was seeking truth and light, in the beginning, not just these accolades and prestigious rewards, right?
But the truth and light is right there with you. It's always there, mate.
Absolutely.
We are all. I had quite a profound experience a few weeks ago in the 5D meditation, where Jay was. He just said that we're all divine beings, and had this revelation that if you sort of take off the S, we're just all divine being. We're all just the consciousness, just all here. Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah. So, divine being, because we all are it. We all are the one. And it's just maybe the synchronicities are there to have that recall moment. Not necessarily like deja vus, but the sort of, well, I suppose if you think about it in a cog, a wheel, you're synchronizing the cog, aren't you? So yeah, excellent.
And speaking of light, Alan, your name Alan means light. That's my middle name, as a matter of fact. It means light.
Oh, it's your middle name. That's all.
Like Greek. So
right?
You're light.
Alan's a light bringer.
Yeah, excellent.
Right, and it's funny. So you just said light bringer. I mean, that's another thing that always gets me. So people say, like, whenever someone says, it's this Luciferian conspiracy, it's like, but who's Lucifer? Lucifer's the light bringer. And I don't believe in an actual, man or being named Lucifer, but to say that, we confuse our symbols so easily. And, how is this a negative thing? Aren't we searching for the light? Aren't we, I don't know, it's a small little thing, but that sort of always gets me. You mentioned light bringer, and it's like, I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, but you're right. I think that enters the realm in all the weird in the the early 20th century, 19th century in American pop culture and history. You have these like strange associations between people you wouldn't expect being involved in like the Order of the Palladium and all these strange esoteric stuff that you're like, what are they? Are they operating with some different understanding or meaning of these words and terms? But you're absolutely right. And it's funny how our minds go right there, because even when I said those words, I too went right there with the thinking, the automatic meaning of the term.
Yeah. I think, so ultimately, like, let's say somebody else, I think for me, and this is probably not a popular opinion, but again, we have to realize that everyone's sort of interpreting the mythology or these mythological figures or any of the symbols. They of course bring their own context to it. So it's, I think, being a Westerner, it's easy to see when someone says, "Oh, I love Jesus," and you go, "Okay, well, they're a good Christian person, or something like that. Well, so Jesus is the light bringer. Jesus is the morning star. So how come that person we think of as okay? If someone else said they worship Lucifer, we now we have all these connotations that have been sort of beaten into our head, and to me, even like I said, this is probably unpopular, but the idea of a Satan figure or something like that, I've met Satanists who seemed like better people than a lot of Christians I've met.
Extremely rational people, yeah.
Yeah, they just called their divine being something else, or they interpreted that quote unquote dark figure differently. Yeah. And I'm not promoting or disparaging any belief system. I'm just saying I think we need to a lot of times consider if it's a name or a mythological belief system or figure that where we have a sort of knee-jerk reaction to, we need to sort of reassess it. And again, I'm not promoting or disparaging anything.
Yeah, well, you could more generalize it than just saying Satan. You could say any kind of pagan deity. It doesn't have to be just Satan. It could be, Mithras or Bacchus or anything that people would be like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, hail Bacchus or Lord Buddha. People are always, freaked out by any other. But you see, you can say Jesus Christ very commonly. It's commonly accepted. And don't forget about your Savior. The Savior.
Or go,
for all of us.
Jesus.
Yeah, right.
Well, I suppose everybody's got their own archetype, and so whether that be Jesus or Satan or the Buddha or anything,
Krishna or anybody, yeah.
Allah, they're all basically the same thing in that it's a belief in a more supreme consciousness, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, I've been flipping through, recently I've been flipping through the book, the book your church doesn't want you to read, and there's a lot of essays dealing with this very subject, the 16 different messiahs going back through the last few thousand years. I mean, that Savior archetype is a repeated concept in our collective consciousness,
Yeah.
But,
the Trinity.
Sure, the Trinity as well.
And I think that also goes into the court system. I've been going off point. I've been watching a lot of Dean Clifford recently, and the court is the Trinity there. There's this trustee, the administrator.
Oh, the three crowns, right? You're talking about the sovereignty laws and everything.
Yeah. He's a dude.
Him and Max Egan as well is involved.
Yeah.
Same profession.
That is an excellent little podcast that they did there. Anyway, back to the synchro mysticism.
No, run with it, man. That's cool.
Well, can we just for a moment? I mean, I'm interested how this all translates for American law. It's a
you're still owned by the crown, mate.
Yeah, is it the maritime law? Is that it? Law of the sea that we're under, or is it?
Well, all your lawyers.
Pax Romana, or what? Yeah.
All of your lawyers are part of the Bar Association, which is the Law Society in the City of London. And when I don't know whether it was actually when the Constitution was written, but it was just a change of name from the Virginia Company to the United States of America. And there's actually a law office in London that's where the United States of America is registered.
As a corporate entity, as a company.
Yeah. Which Barack H. Obama is their trading name at the moment.
So we're all just assets, human resource assets to the company.
Yeah, basically. And so Dean's take is that if I'm a part of if you're saying that I'm part of the company, where's my fucking money? Build.
That's like a truck. That's like a truck asking for profit margin. Yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
Hello.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I
thought it was Carolyn talking. Sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
That's right. Yeah. So the idea that does this point of view in itself sort of, I don't know, validate or strengthen their argument? Right now, they're saying they're a corporation, they own us as property, and if we say, well, then I want my money, in a way, are we saying, yes, okay, I'm acknowledging your system? How about if we say, screw you, that I don't believe in that, it doesn't apply to me, and I want nothing to do with you?
Yeah,
well, that's Max Egan's and the other gentleman, Dean's position, I believe, is non-compliance.
Yeah.
They're saying don't subscribe to their terms. Define their terms. Say, aren't I, in fact, the only sole shareholder of my entity, and therefore I don't recognize this? I didn't sign any contracts.
Yeah,
I'm not liable to any of these agreements.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I think it's a huge difference of saying, all right, well, I'm your property, I want my share of the profits.
Like, I was taking the piss there, mate.
No, I think that's a really good point, though, because that's where I think our only salvation, personally, socially as a species right now, is that absolute non-compliance in the absolute sense. And, I mean, it's just having the bravery to make that stand.
And I think this is that the I wouldn't say the freedom movement in itself, but I think sovereignty, remembering our sovereignty is a huge part in this Type 1 civilization, because once we actually recognise that we're the ones with the power, we're the 99%, so it's time that those people start to do work for us like they're supposed to. So, yeah. Should we have a little tune before we go into the second hour there? I've got a lovely little tune by Bob Marley. That was Bob Marley with Natural Mystic. We're back, and caller 111-111-1111. We're on the air.
Namaste.
Hello there. Is that Swami?
Namaste.
Hello.
Namaste.
Namaste. And Alan, we're back. Hello.
I'm here, buddy.
Cool.
Namaste. Hello.
I hear someone saying namaste.
Yeah, that is Swami, I think. Can you hear us, Swami?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hear you just fine.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Namaste right back at you.
Namaste to everyone. I welcome you all with great love and great respect.
Right back at you, my brother. So, Swami, have you got any questions for Alan?
Well, I wanted to ask Alan if he had yet, in his own experience, encountered the light.
If I, in my own experience, encountered what? Say that again?
The light.
As I perceive it, yes. I understand, having researched this, I understand people are defining it differently. And I think it's because it's such a hard thing to define, but I think the question, asking a question as that, is the simplest way to. It's like if you experience it, you know it. Correct? You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it is a direct and conscious experienced phenomenon amongst humans. And it's not, I mean, but you have to go to the mystics, because the mystics are the ones interpreting this directly and then speaking in the terms and times that their body is located in, you know. Religion has become this frozen expression from 2,000 years ago or whatever, you know, and that's not that it was valid in those in the company of that individual at that time. But you know, the whole Jesus died and took on the sins of the world, that didn't work out so good. We wouldn't be having all this stuff now if that were the point of it, because it was not the point of it. The point of that happening, if that's what truly occurred, was so that the disciples would see. And that's these initiative lineages. This is how it works. It's always worked that way. It works that way today. It'll be working that way in another 100 years. It's humanity.
The show is just about to end on the live, but stay on there, and we're recording for the second hour.
We'll go.
So yeah, excellent. You're still there.
Hey, Sonic.
Hello, Carolyn.
Hey, Sonic, I just wanted to add a practical note. You guys always know how much of a pain in the butt I could be about that stuff. Hey, Alan, you got a super Facebook page. I wanted to let people know that because I've been putting their stuff up on Facebook, and I wanted to warn people there's 2 Amazon books called Sync. Don't get screwed up. It's not the Carnell guy from,
Your voice
looks like the same cover. This is the Sync book with Miss Magic Media and Mindscapes. So make sure if you go to order it, you get the right book for Christmas, you know. And you got a great Facebook page, Alan. I wanted to say very mystical, but it's useful.
Oh, thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, and if anyone wants, they can go to thesyncbook.com is a good way to find both the correct copy of the book and the and many of the authors within, links to their sites. As far as, I did see that other book, that Sync book, which is very, it's just called Sync, which is a really funny thing. I've looked at it. It's actually a different subject, but the similarities between the cover and the name is nothing but it's a huge synchronicity in itself. It's just really funny. But
it totally tripped me out when I saw it. I thought too. I thought very synchronistic. How cool, you know? Maybe you should maybe you should call that guy and get him, you know, talk to him, get him in the next book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wanted to address the statements that were made before about the light and the disciples. The connection is not that solid, so I don't know if I heard everything you said, but one of the things that you mentioned that really spoke to me was the idea that, you know, religion is frozen in time, whereas the mystics are, you know, showing how this continues on into the modern time. You know, I actually, so you said, you know, you have to go to the mystics, and then I said, again, I don't know if I heard everything, but I am of the mindset that you don't need to go to anybody, that there is a way to directly interface with it. And perhaps a lot of these mystery schools are good at teaching methods for doing it. But at the same time, ultimately, I also think that there should be no need for any middleman in this. I believe in gnosis, which is direct interface with the light, or, you know, the divine, however we want to term this. And
but see, that's when you're having your own mystic experience.
Sure,
and that's what the mystics have always been teaching. It's not that one person did something or achieved some state of consciousness, and now everybody should focus on that person. That's absolutely incorrect. Everybody should go within themselves. As Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within you, and all these things will be added unto you. This is speaking of oneness. Everything you see as things separate from you now, once you come to that experience directly, you very clearly see it's just you.
Yes. Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Well, I mean, that's the direct experience. It's freakish because we haven't been taught that this is okay for us to do. And it's happening all over the place to varying degrees for the individuals involved.
Yeah.
But it's
And
totally natural.
Yeah. It's funny, I was actually thinking, I obviously we all come to time who are very much in resistance. And, I hear people saying this idea of if someone's, how should I put it, they're reinterpreting, or if you're not following the official interpretation of the Bible, say, as an example, that they've got you agree have this realization with the living language, the living word of God. I'm like, but you're writing a dead book. You're the ones who are making it a hunk of text, whereas the people who are reinterpreting it for their lives now are the ones who are actually bringing it alive.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the task we've always had, and it's always been available through these various lineages in that. What I found really interesting was that Manly P. Hall and what he was talking about is the same thing that is done in the East. It's just broken up and spoken of differently, but then he was not one of the Masons. He was honorary.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is going into this Luciferian thing where these certain abilities to influence things and that sort of stuff happens, but that happens to everyone who is on the way to the final revelation of the Absolute. This is another thing, just a higher level thing, where the details become detours from the goal. And they've become completely taken up by it. Whereas if they were being trained by an actual master who had already gotten to the end, he would help them to not do that. Don't engage in that. When these things just bubble up on their own and occur within a circumstance, okay, great. But you don't focus on bringing your personalized power-seeking will into the equation. These things will occur quite on their own. People experience, this is the synchromysticism we're talking about. Whatever is needed on the occasion happens, and it's just, there's no linear logic way to put it together.
Now, it's funny because I've spoken to people who, and I agree, I actually think it's a distraction, but I've spoken to people who basically were acknowledging that we are, let's simplify it, say we're manifesting our reality, or we are the divine, we have the divine power within us. So some people will think the idea of, how shall I put it, developing this as almost like a form of lucid dreaming or lucid living, the ability to control and shape your reality is part of the quote-unquote lesson. And I think the lesson, I think you and I agree, would be to know that you have that power, to acknowledge that you are that powerful and you are that much of a powerful, sovereign, incredibly amazing being, but also to know that with that, to use the Spider-Man cliche, that with that power comes great responsibility, and that the true seeker turns away from that power lust and instead tries to harmonize himself with this essence.
Right. And it's no different, I mean, to put it into mystic parlance, Buddha went through it. He was tempted. The character Jesus went through it, was tempted with power and being given things and controls, and, it's the ones who go, oh, hell yeah, give me lots of that. Those are the ones who screw up, and they don't get to the end because they become lost where these people are lost. But see, there's so many, because of the galactic situation we're in. I mean, the very vibrational frequency of matter is increasing. Everything is reaching greater and greater potentials of expression. So that which is most natural to the human species on this planet is what's going to manifest. These folks can fight it, but the beach ball can't be held under the water anymore.
Definitely.
And it's going to be very interesting to watch it occur.
Oh yeah.
It's and it's happening more and more, faster and faster every day. The quickness is, or the convergence.
Well, I mean, how many of you guys have noticed time moves faster now than when you were a youth?
Yeah, but isn't that necessarily to do with the time that you experienced when you were a kid was a massive part of your whole existence, whereas as you get older, every year is a percentage smaller each time. It's like logarithmic. So, like your second year that you're alive, that feels like the longest because it's half of your life. Whereas if you're 50 or 70, that's a year is like a 70th of your life. So because you've experienced more, you've got more to judge it by, So it is appearing faster, and maybe that has got something to do with was going around aligning with the galactic centre, because gravity, when objects get closer, gravity sort of pulls them faster, doesn't it? They're trying to repulse each other almost, aren't they? Some, with magnets, they repulse each other. But
I think that's an interesting question there, Sonic, because the idea, so is it that we are, on an individual level, we're just getting older and that we're perceiving time differently, or is it possible that, and again, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, but is it possible that as a race of human beings, we're getting older and we're developing? So it's very possible that we're experiencing...
It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. I'm just saying, I think it's an interesting question, but I would argue it's exactly the same thing, yeah.
I think it's all...
I'm just curious, has anyone else gone, wow, when I think about it, time itself seems to be moving fast.
Well,
a day doesn't seem as long as it used to be.
As I experienced it, at least as with my psychic abilities and stuff, usually we measure time as a result of intensity, and what's happened, the intensity is increasing, so time can move not only faster in one direction, but it can slow down very quick too. It's like it's becoming more mutable. You can arrive on time no matter what you do nowadays.
Yeah. I have experienced the speed up of time pretty heavily. I've noticed that, but I think the gentleman who just spoke, I think that's also the case. I know. I think the crowd I'm speaking to is familiar with psychedelic experiences, or at least familiar with these ideas.
Yeah.
I think a common thing there that I've experienced is the strange time distortion that comes with it. And what I'm noticing is that, I'll be honest, I haven't done psychedelics in a few years, but I'm noticing in everyday life that same sort of both mindset and the way in which I relate to time is seeping into the mundane life at a very increased rate. And I don't. So is it mutability or an attention to it? I have my own personal opinions, but I think there's room for slight, subtle, semantic debate on that. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, but maybe
see, that's where I don't look for the debate. I look for the similarity. Look what we're experiencing, and let's share that. And let all the for me the entirety of the mystic path is like going to Baskin Robbins, and then all of a sudden deciding I'm going to kill the next person that orders chocolate because I like vanilla. You just see the idiocy of all of that. All of the ones who became figures of religious worship had direct and conscious experiences of the source. Call it how you will. It doesn't matter. All names belong to that. So, it's after these sorts of experiences, the level of functioning changes. And the knowledge, because that's the direct and conscious knowledge, which is quite literally the flow of sound and light. And when you penetrate into that, you find the source. And it's still. It's absolute stillness. Nothing moving. And it's okay. It's not a lack of anything. What I perceive it as an empty fullness.
Yeah.
All potential is there. Any possibility can arise. And it's totally safe.
I think
that's the end of suffering.
And it's beautifully said. So I guess I'm in a weird position because as sort of, on this 3D level as representing the sync book, so there's 26 guys who are in this who might not agree with what I say. So that's why I try and preface my statements and at least acknowledge the debate. So, but I think, speaking for myself, and as I said at the onset of the show, for me, I focus on where we can all agree, and that's the most profound thing. Everyone's going to perceive it slightly differently or put a different label on it, but ultimately the real truth is where there aren't even words for it. So the labels are
absolutely right.
Yes, the labels are always going to be faulty.
To even speak creates a separation that does not exist in truth.
Yes.
Because any sound is associated with something and is not something else.
So is that the end of the show? Are we done?
I know. So, yeah, really. We're just going to be quiet now. Alan, I'm really glad I had the opportunity to talk.
Same here. I really appreciate your point of view, and I think you and I are pretty much on the same page here. So, I think even though words are, of course, always lacking, there's never going to be the right words. I think you came beautifully, either as close as possible, or at least put it in the most beautiful words possible. So much credit.
Well, my function, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I do right quick. I am a Vedic ordained Swami of the Giri Order of India. My teacher was the first American-born Caucasian man to be uplifted to the rank of Mahamandeleshwar in Hindu. There are 80 Mahamandeleshwars on the planet. And like I said, my guru was the first American-born white man to be admitted to that rank. What we do is all about Sanatana Dharma, which we refer to as the eternal way. It is what Hinduism arose from. It is what Buddhism arose from. Buddha was a yogi. He wasn't the first one to do anything. They just chose him, and all of a sudden this religion started up. And those who were in his presence understood what was going on, and those who came along later just worshipped one who said what they knew. And that wasn't what he was trying, Neither he nor Jesus looked for worship personally. They're like, this is in you. I'm going to help you find it. And that was that, and those lineages continue. The religion part, where they start telling you how you're different from everybody else. If you look at this person as the goal. The goal was within yourself. That's what they came and spoke of. That's what they taught to those they initiated. Those ones experienced that directly within themselves. And they spoke in parables and stories and made up things and myths and, that sort of stuff for the ones who couldn't yet have the direct experience yet, but it helped with, guiding them through life. But those people have always existed. It's not frozen to 2,000 years ago and what that even said. People speak that way now. And our thing is we're trying to take the Sanskrit truths and express them in a Western way where people can go, well, that should make, well, now that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I experienced something like that. All right, great. And this is where everybody's coming to now, because it's becoming directly perceived by so many people. And you can look at any of the flavors that you like. Try it.
Yeah.
But the 5 functions of the Creator, as far as the creation is concerned, is creation, sustaining, concealing, revealing, and ending. Call it destruction, if you will, but it's really just all the toys go back and forth.
Yeah, and then become still, and then
right. And this is an eternal process playing out within consciousness. That when you get thrown as the individual across the river of light and knowledge, who can say where you're going to hit as you skip across? But once the skipping is done, you just sink down within, and it's all the same thing. What difference does it make to the ocean what the waves do? The wave on an ocean of consciousness. Discover that you are that, and then the rest you can just watch. And you will act appropriately in the situations as they present themselves.
Yeah.
It's really simple. You know?
And I suppose
Making
that's where
it complicated doesn't make it better. Just makes it more complicated. And it doesn't have to be better at all, really. You know?
Yeah, that. Just return to the still.
But, Alan, thank you very, very much for the efforts you've gone to in collecting all these various flavors. You know?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think
job of being Alan. High five you.
Thank you very much. I think, you know, the idea is obviously just basically saying the same thing a different way, is that so hopefully one of those, we got 26 flavors in this book, you know, hopefully one of those speaks to you, but the idea is ultimately to show people, and that's really my effort in this, is to show people this is something everyone can experience. You don't need I don't want to be your guru. I don't want to be anything. Hopefully I don't want you to pick any of these other guys as your guru or anything. That's not the point. The point is to say, hey, look at this. If that's the only thing I could do for you is to show, hey, look at this. If you pursue this, best of luck to you. I think you'll be happy. You know, I think you'll, you know, just to gently remind people there's a path here, and there's, you know, it's easy to get distracted from, but hopefully we'll sort of turn back inwards and get back into that, get back into our that true path.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To the still. I think we're gonna have a little smoke break. So Swami, stay on the line there.
Okay.
And we're going to play The Police and Synchronicity. So so that was The Police, an excellent British band with a very synchronistic tune called Synchronicity. So everyone is back up and able to speak. Alan, I was just listening back to your interview that you did the week with Thomas on Got the Talk.
Yes.
And the book hitting the head tale. I thought that was quite interesting. Do you want to tell everybody about that if you haven't heard the Got the Talk?
Sure, yeah. Just like, yeah, Thomas Malone does a great podcast, Grok the Talk. I encourage you to check it out. Just because it's just really good. But yeah, I have no problem. Okay. Oh, I guess it was whenever the whole Charlie Sheen public breakdown and attention to that thing was happening. So at a time frame I honestly don't remember. I'm not good with remembering dates and times. So as I said, time is very in flux for me. But whenever that was, so it was shortly after I had put out I have a novel that I did called Look at All the Happy Creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And I put that book out, I guess, February, and it's much more focused on conspiracy stuff, and it was some stuff that I had started writing while I was very into that, and I believe it still applies because within that, of course, is this other ideas of expanded consciousness and sort of how to break out of that way of thinking. So regardless, I had put out this book in February, and then Charlie Sheen comes out, and he's having suddenly all this attention is on him. And I know Charlie Sheen had appeared on Alex Jones, and he seemed to voice ideas for 9/11 Truth and all these sorts of things. And I just thought maybe I could. He was in New York doing a one-man show, and I was like, oh, maybe I could slip him a copy of the book and and just sort of see if he likes it. The idea, for me even back then was, how do you get some of these ideas out there into the wider audience, and not even for a success thing, but just to get the ideas out there.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like a good timing. Charlie Sheen's in town. I live here in New York City, so he was at I think it was, might have been like Rockefeller Center or something like that. Of course, the Rockefeller connection's pretty funny, but he was doing a one-man show, and I decided to head over there with the copy of the book. What I found there was not something that I would have expected. Here in New York, we do not have like an LA type paparazzi. I've never seen anything like that. Usually, celebrities come here because they can be somewhat anonymous, because they can just be as close to normal as possible. Here in New York, if something crazy or someone famous, it doesn't matter. Quick little side tangent. I remember, like, when I was probably in like high school, when it first hit me that I lived in a place where everything was acceptable. I was in like Central Park one day, hanging out with my friends, and some guy walked past in this full-on cow costume in like the middle of the summer. Just this guy by in this full-on cow costume, and everyone sort of, I mean, it's a crowded park. Everyone just sort of had the same reaction. Moved up for like a second, sort of made a face like, that's weird, and just went right back to their conversation, like, oh well, there's a guy in a cow costume. And it's a stupid little story, but to say that really here you could do anything you want and no one gives a shit, and it's the great thing about it.
That's the same in Brighton, mate.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's so wonderful. So anyway, the Charlie Sheen, like, pop up line out the door, and I was surprised by that. Just never experienced it. What's that?
Yeah, your mic was cutting out there.
Oh, so now I'm getting. That's really weird. I get this crazy echo. Basically, it's really distracting, but I'm trying to cope with it. Can you hear me okay?
You're sort of a bit choppy.
Okay.
I don't hear the echo.
It's been breaking up on this end for a while.
Oh boy. All right, well, I'll just try and get this out unless you have a good suggestion how to do it.
Alan, are you sure somebody in a costume? Were you having a flashback or disease or what?
It could very well be. This is all in my head.
Everything's in everybody's head, mate.
It's all depends on the matrix.
There's a strange echo effect coming back at me.
I think it's because my mic on. I think, immortals have a hard time with electricals.
Jay said it's coming from me. How can it be coming from me? I've not got anything open that can do that.
Must have been the scum.
But it's been fine so far.
Well, can people hear me okay?
Just in case when people are listening to the podcast, want to check.
Welcome to Type1, Alan.
The future is now.
Yeah, it may be a bit stuttery. Yeah.
All right, so I'm trying to get this out.
Okay.
Sort of. Do me a favor. I'm going to completely mute speakers. And just send. I see Reset said we can hear you, Alan. When I'm going to stop talking. I'll just put something in the chat because I'm going to try and get this out, but I can't talk while this is going. Basically, Charlie Sheen is in town. There's tons of paparazzi there, and I realize there's absolutely no way I can get near him. So I'm like probably like 10 feet back, and there's this crowd of people screaming and cheering for Charlie Sheen, and I suddenly realized there's absolutely no way I can hand the man the book, but I'm looking at him, looking at the book, looking at him, looking at the book, and I say, you know, there's a clear path right through this crowd. There's not a clear path that I could walk through, but like at head level, that I could just kind of toss the book at his head, and it would be just this perfect shot. I could just throw the book at his head. And it occurred to me, I'm looking at all these cameras flashing, like, this man is covered in media attention right now. If I threw this book at his head, it's going to be on every news loop for the next week. Everyone's just going to be replaying this loop.
It'll be on YouTube.
And
10 million views on YouTube.
You know, from a marketing perspective, like a golden opportunity. But again, I'm not that much of a douchebag, so I didn't do it. I was like, okay, that's not what I want. This is not the environment I want. This is such a distraction. As I told before, it's so easy to get distracted by things. Like, this is a distraction. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm just going to leave. And as soon as I turn around and start walking away, and he gets into his limousine or whatever, it occurs to me that his one-man show was called, quote, a violent torpedo of truth. It occurred to me that me throwing this book at his head, this book about exposing truth, would have actually been the most poetic thing I could have possibly done, is just getting that out there. It would have been poetic and karmic and beautiful, but ultimately not the right.
I'm sure that has happened in... I'm sure that's happened in a parallel universe now.
I am working on the sync book, and I get a proof in the mail, and the first time I'm holding the book proof for the sync book, and I put something on Facebook saying that the book was hefty. You know, basically it felt like a heavy book, and I think it was Steve Wilner. I'm talking to Steve Wilner, and he says something like, oh, you said the book is hefty. Have you thrown it at anyone's head? And just it was like an interesting synchronicity there. And then I took it to my job, and I just had the book. I'm still reading through it and checking for mistakes. And some coworker of mine picks it up, and he's like, you know, this book feels good. I feel like throwing this at someone's head. And this sort of repeated theme kept coming up, and it was just amazing that here I am dealing with a book about synchronicities, and the book itself is focused around this strange synchronicity. So it's that's come to think of it almost as like a new book of the law, right? Where they say throw the book at them.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a sort of really funny experience that I had with it, and
do you think that was a message?
Something that really makes me chuckle. But it's such a profound, in a weird sort of way, a profound thing that I hadn't told anyone about this Charlie Sheen thing, and yet it kept coming.
Did you think that may be a message to you that you're waking up, you're sort of seeing the synchronicities, you're seeing the connecting, and each time somebody else mentioned that to you, it's sort of, the synchronicity maybe was confirming even more your conviction.
Oh, sure. And, you know, I think there's more of a sync. I had one of my friends and was trying to explain to her the concept of synchronicity and what the book was about. And she's not familiar with any of these subjects, and I found it kind of taken the book and hit her in the head with it, the way a Zen master does, and said, that's what it's about. So it's sort of is also what you're saying, that there's sort of like basically what synchronicity sort of smacks in the head. Pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how magic this world around you is.
Yeah. And the story there, it reminded me of a part, I don't know whether you've read that book of The Living and the Dead, Dying, by a guy called Sogol Rinpoche, and there's a part in it where his spiritual guide, the guy that was looking after him, was basically giving him an initiation of some kind, and he turned round to him. I think they were just chatting, and then he turned round to him and said, "What is mind?" And then Sogol sort of was saying that at that point, all the concept of mind sort of disappeared, and it seemed to him at the time that was a really simple, because mind, was no question that mind was everything, and there was no separation. It was sort of everything is mind, and so the book is like the guru, giving you a knock, giving you a wake up.
And I think ultimately that would be from that Zen perspective, it would probably be the most, the best teaching we can give. I liked what we talked about earlier, the idea of the guru, the gently sort of just, if anything, say to you, hey, you can do this. But at the same time, that's what people need. It's just, it's sort of like, hey, you have this. I never like to talk down to people, but in that sort of, what's wrong with you? That's it. You are powerful. Okay, extra much. I have this idea once. This building where years ago it was, I think it was, I want to say it was Abby Hoffman. I don't know. Basically, it was a school for anarchy, a briefly lived school for anarchy, and just that concept of a school of anarchy was hilarious to me. How do you teach someone? How do you have put an institution up to teach people to not give authority to institutions? And I decided, you know what? If I ever need money, and I want to help people at the same time, I'm going to open a school of anarchy, and it's going to be an empty office with just a secretary out front at a desk, and someone comes in and says, hey, I'd like to sign up for the school. You say, okay, that'll be $100, and they hand you the $100, and you say, okay, you idiot, you just gave up your own power, walk back outside, I hope you learned your lesson. And it's cool. And if they ever forget their lesson, they can come back and they could pay me $100 again to say, I hope you feel stupid, you just gave away your authority, go back outside.
That's genius. Excellent. And maybe with the stick as well.
Right. I mean, it's not really my personality to be like, but just like I said, it's more of a joke than anything. But this idea, I mean, I think there are days where we just want to say to people, sort of snap out of it. You are divine.
Yeah.
You just figured out the economy. I think you're up to like the 20th degree of Freemasonry now.
We'll have all 33 by the end of the show, which is in about 10 minutes. Carolyn, have you got anything to ask Alan?
Well, I was curious. How did you pick the 26 people?
Are you referring to the number or the people specifically?
Yeah, combination. I mean, 26 is an odd number to begin with, but I mean, how did you pick them? I have to admit, I haven't read the whole book, you know. So I mean, but if you want to send me if you want to send me a free book, it wouldn't be idiotic. Seriously, I could take. It's Christmas. Christmas is coming, and it is on my list. Okay. Since you can't be my Facebook friend, I will take a free book. But how did you pick this?
If you become my Facebook friend, I'll send you a book if you become my Facebook friend.
All right. Well, are there any women in
that much to me?
Are there any women in your book?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, how did you pick them? I want to know how to get in the next.
I picked women based solely on favors they did for me. So.
Oh, I can see the synchronicity in that. Yeah.
No, that's a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
No, I can see the synchronicity in that. kind of a page turner. I can see that. Thumb through the book. There's a kind of I can see that happening.
Yeah, and there's very instructive photos inside of the experience. No,
well, as long as you have stick figures and Rossetti can bring along his furniture barn, we're all right.
There you go. So the number 26 is actually a loaded number. You said it's a random number, but it's actually, there's a chapter, Kyle does star theory. After, it's actually funny, there's part of it focuses on the number 26, both from a gematria point of view and just sort of other numerological systems, the importance of the number 26. Of course, there's 26 letters.
I figured there had to be a reason. I had figured there had to be a reason why you picked 26, because it is an unusual number, and it's got a little bit of a power thing to it.
I'll have you know, 26 is a very good number. It's the number of mine and Freighter's birthday, so it's a very good number.
Oh, nice. Well, the true answer is that I didn't pick 26. 26 picked me. So when like I said, I first started this by just sending out an email to maybe, 15 people and just sort of seeing what the reaction was. And I got responses back from maybe 14 saying yes, and then I said also, hey, I don't have everyone's email address. If you can think of someone I left off this email, let me know. And we just sort of developed it naturally. And by the time we got close to being done with the book, where it was really becoming something solid and we were getting down to the nitty-gritty, we were at 22, which 22 is also a very interesting number. So our original cover, if you looked on the SyncBook Facebook page, I know you're a Facebook fan, look at the photos there. There's an original cover which has 22 authors. And we were so close to being done, and then I had one gentleman who approached me about being in the book, and I was like, listen, we're way too close to being done. We already have a cover designed. I already had the layout done and all this sort of stuff, and I was like, I'm sorry, we're just way too close. And something happened within the printing, the pre-press, let's put it that way, where the interior formatting of the book, where I realized I was going to have to reformat the interior of the book completely. It was just this very last minute, I didn't account for this, and I realized I was going to have to reformat the interior. And at that, again, synchronicity, at that moment, I asked Steve Wilner. I had originally sent him the email to see if he'd be in the book, and I never heard back from him. He then wrote me saying, hey, is it too late? Can I still be in the book? At the moment where I just realized I had to reformat the interior. And I also had another guy who had asked to be in it, which I initially told no because we were just so close to the deadline. And I was like, all right. I opened it up, and I was like, all right, if you guys can get me something in 4 days, and I said, I know it's a crazy deadline, but if you can get me something in 4 days, we can put it in the book. I spoke to the guy who did the cover. He agreed. He would redo the cover slightly to make room for the extra names and change the number and whatever, and we would go that route. And basically, I opened it up to, I think, 3 other people. I personally like the number 27, but I actually opened it up to I think 5 other people, and one guy couldn't make the deadline, but I had 2 other people sign on at the last minute, and that brought us to 26. It was synchronicity. It was not planned.
Definitely synchronicity. We have a calendar, which is so like 5 minutes to wrap up. So what's your message to people in Holland about the Sync book? What if you'd say one thing about it, what would it be?
Well, what I'd really like to say first is to say I encourage everyone to go to thesyncbook.com and click on the authors tab. There are 26 authors within this book, all doing amazing work, and I would really like everyone to check out what they're doing because their work should speak for itself. So that's part of it.
Would it be possible to maybe do like another show sometime, maybe in January, of all the contributors to the show?
All of them? I doubt all of them, and I don't say that as a. I'm just saying, practically, I had tried. We did a conference call once where I think we got 11 of us over like a 3-hour period, but people later and so on and so on. It's hard with 26 people, and it.
Are they from around the world then?
What's that?
Are they from different parts of the world? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but just to say that, practically speaking, I think that's a real long shot to have 26 on at once. However, I would gladly open it up to whoever's interested, whoever can make the time. If you want to try and schedule something, I would gladly whoever can make it. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you just get in touch with them, say it's a possibility, and just you've got my email. Just get them to email me, and then we could do that at some point in the future. So get to your one truth of Sync book.
The one truth is that if you look with the right eyes, you will find from truth. And it tells you where you're going to find it, but it's there.
Right, so we've got 2 minutes left. I think we may just play a nice little tune to end on. This will be, do you realise? Thank you very much for coming on the show. Much appreciated.
Get to know you guys and talking with you, and just drop me a line if you ever want to chat again.
Yeah, and you're always welcome to the Radio Lounge on the Saturday. Just the usual time. You'll just see it there either on Facebook or Friends of Freeman. Okay. Speak to you later, people of the world. This is the Type1 Radio Lounge with Sonic, and this is the Flaming Lips. Do you